Children's Day.
Yeah,
well, that is why we're here to talk about this. But then the focus this year, besides amplifying the rights of children, is to also look at how the pandemic has, created some. He pointed out. I'd like for you to react to this.
Okay, first off, I want to take it from the aspect where you started from about how the pandemic has so much affected our children. First off, one of the child rights we have is that a child has the right to good governance. A child has the right to be cared for in the absence of the parents or the guardians. So the government has a role to produce a conducive environment for every child that is called by its name. That's every citizen, of the country, which unfortunately in this part of the world we have missed it. Now, going back to the theme of the Universal Children's Day, which says investing in the future means investing in the children. Now, how have we fared in this part of the world? And when I say in this part of the world, I'm talking about Nigeria. How have we fared in the past? In our healthcare aspect, what have we done? Not here we talk about women mortality. Look at the mortality rates. We have that is even children. From birth. Let's give the fact that, yes, okay, they do one or two things, well, quote and unquote, maybe in some of the southwestern states in the country. What happens?
To the other states.
To the other states.
What's going on?
What care do they have? What care do they have from childbirth? After the birth of the children, we still have some states in this part of the world that they don't have access to immunization. It starts from there. We're talking about investing in the future now, but the future begins from today. They say, when is the best time to plant? It was 20 years ago, but then
you have an opportunity now
to do it. So we can begin to, we can start from looking at the healthcare system, because for we to have a future in those children, they need to be alive. They need to live. They need to live, not just live, but they need to live healthy. To be able.
Sometimes it begins from understanding the impact.
Exactly.
And that was why I was trying to I wanted you to make us understand how the impact is on children. Taking the pandemic, for instance, where you also look at the impact of polio on children, for instance, we see how much what the damage it did, but the government was able to bring that to a standstill. And now if we are looking at the pandemic, the COVID-19, what are the issues that we need to really take as critical to be addressed if we are to look from that standpoint?
From the children. Now, you see, unfortunately, we had not, like I said initially, we had not really addressed a lot of things, but it's not too late. Now, looking at the children, how it had affected them, we are so fortunate in this part of the world that somehow, in our own way, God knows, we are being able to manage the pandemic, and we do not really have a lot of fatalities when it comes to children. And you find out that even the children are in school, surprisingly, I was expecting that we're going to have like an outburst of, the pandemic. But you see, life is going on, as usual.
There were a few cases recorded in some schools.
Very few cases that, I was expecting an outburst, you understand. But then that is one of the reasons our government take things for granted, because somehow our systems, just takes care of itself, most especially in this pandemic. Unfortunately, if we had a crisis, you don't want to imagine what would have happened. Every mother would have been like, my child be on that. In fact, you find mothers will not even want to go to work because they don't want this child to even step out of the house. So you see, it's in so much, it has affected, the children in the sense that, look at the education. I was asking someone some few days ago. I said, look, which curriculum are we practicing now? You did this school, they are having their third term, that school are having their second term, and everything, irregularities all over. You see, it brings us back to the educational system also. If we had gotten good educational system, in place, what stops us from still keeping the children at home? If things that are supposed to be, we have power, we have.
In some other African countries, they talked about resuming in 2021.
That's what I'm saying. It's because a lot of things have not been put in place to make its education outside the four walls of the school, comfortable. A lot of, look at Veronica, where the children were at home for 2 terms. I tell you, there were some children that did not even have the opportunity to education at all.
Absolutely.
These are part of the impact it had on the children. They were denied because not any fault of theirs, but probably because of poverty, probably because, their parents could not afford a school that could, conduct the online
classes.
Even some schools that were, like my daughter's school, I had 1 or 2 of them that couldn't join the online classes. Why? Because they could not just afford the data, they couldn't afford the generator.
So many issues.
So many issues.
What it is that we haven't really seen the children as being the future of this country, like he pointed out.
I want to say that probably in our subconscious mind, but we are not intentional about a lot of things. You see, investments, even in our everyday life, if you want to make an investment, you have to be intentional about it. Exactly. If you're not intentional about it, you won't get it right. Now, Veronica, let me take you back to the days of when I went to school. When I went to school, these days, academics has gone beyond the buildings. When I went to school, we had a badminton court, we had a table tennis court, we had I played volleyball, in my secondary school, we had the beach, we had a football,
Which is almost non-existent.
Exactly. There were competitions like Principal Cup, and look at the likes of Mary Onyali. She started being an athlete right from our school days.
So invariably, because we have to start coasting home now. If we have to reimagine the future for the children, we have to be intentional.
Exactly, and we need to go back to the basics about a lot of things. The world is evolving, Veronica.
Absolutely.
We're talking about IT here. We're talking about the social media. Yes, everybody makes a lot of noise about the negativities of social media, but have we sat down to look at the positive things that to explore from social media? And we see that those children, they sit there day in, day out. Even as a government, as a community, as a society, as individuals, as parents also, because it's a collective effort, to build these children. We all have a role. We look at the world is evolving away from the analog to, we have artificial intelligence, and these things we need to begin to inculcate it in how many schools have an ICT center. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was saying that my child's ICT, don't talk about your child's school. You see, but we have 1,000. I couldn't even imagine that person I was talking to. The child was not even undergoing ICT in the children's school. You see, that's what we're talking about, because even the average man cannot even afford the basic things that the child needs. Now, we have some private schools that do not even have this basic thing. Let's go to, we are losing.
We readjusted.
And I must mention here also, I was talking about our social values. We really need it. We are losing it fast. But I understand.
And that is where parents coming, isn't it?
Yes, if parents come in, then even the government, I understand history is no more
it is.
Some people say history, we have a lot of things where parents, are fast being absentee parents. A lot of parents that are even well-to-do, they grow up one morning and see their 18-year-old child, and they want to wonder, how did you even get into my house? Because they have missed it when the child was growing up. So we should be intentional. You should be there emotionally, you should be there mentally, so that we don't breed children that they grow up to be psychologically damaged, emotionally damaged, and they begin to be, danger to the community and the society at large.
Interesting. I believe the relevant stakeholders are listening and will pick the points necessary. It's a joint effort towards ensuring that the future that we're looking forward for our children is reimagined, and it's a combined effort from all stakeholders.